Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. She is the author of several books, no other than Miss Hannah Parry.
Thanks so much, Daniel. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Miss Hannah, and welcome back again. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, my name's Hannah Parry, and I trained as a nurse back in the day, and then I switched from nursing over to writing. I did a master's in creative writing, and I wrote my first book was Winter's Bite, which is a children's historical thriller. And then I wrote another book, which is its sequel called Fever Quest, which is another historical thriller. And then from 2016 onwards, I've written two adult novels, one of which came out at Christmas, and it's called Breathing for Both of Us. And the other one is just about to come out in about 2 months' time.
Yes. And today, Miss Hannah, let's talk about your debut novel, Winter's Bite. Can you give our listeners a brief overview of your book and what inspired you to write it?
Sure. I really like looking at this cover because that's the latest cover. It's actually had 3 covers because when I self-published it, I didn't know what I was doing. It was in 2012. This is the book. I sat down and I wrote it simply because I love children's fiction. I've always liked children's fiction, and I had the idea for a character that was brought up in India. Even though she was of a English heritage, she'd grown up in India, and then because of all sorts of problems, she gets sent to England. And I think there are a lot of children like that who suddenly found themselves brought up in a different country, like that, to the one that there's a huge amount of difference between not just the weather between India and England. So that's kind of where it started. I was born in the United States myself, and we came to this country when I was 6. So I think it's just something that's quite close to my heart, what it's like to, even though I was really little, I remember really clearly the difficulty I had in fitting in, actually. And this book is about having all the attributes of somebody who can fit in, but at the same time, knowing that you're different. And also, you've got no support. You've got no family. She has no family. She has to make her way on the streets. It's quite Charles Dickens, as you can probably see from the cover. But she ends up saving a member of the royal family, who later turns out to be Queen Victoria, will grow up to be Queen Victoria. And poor old the princess had a terrible time with her mother's boyfriend, which you can see in a film called The Young Victoria. Does it very well. There's a horrible bloke called John Conroy who was always trying to take over the crown and the regency and all that sort of thing. And I just wrote it I wrote it like a thriller. Somebody's trying to get the princess, and my main character's role is to stop that from happening. So that's what happens there. And then it goes on.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations for your debut novel, Miss Hannah. So, what was the writing process like for this Winter's Bite?
This was okay because this was the first book I ever wrote. So it went really easily. It flowed because I guess I had the story, I had the inspiration. It never occurred to me before I wrote it that I could write a book. So I was so excited by all of this. I sat down and I wrote it really quickly. But I did a degree in the middle of it, and I used the degree as a chance to write this at the same time, and to get the support that I needed from people who knew what they were talking about, because I had no idea what I was doing. And I just got a lot of help and advice from people, and so that was an easy thing to do. And then actually the second book was quite easy as well, because the impetus carried on from this one, and then it's the second. I was still enjoying what I was writing. It was when I went to write the adult books that things became a little bit more difficult, and I had to really think about what I was doing. Whereas these books, I was really thinking about what I was doing, but I really enjoyed it. I would write and write and write. Maybe it's because I was younger.
Yes, trial and error, as they said, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, could you describe the main characters or themes in Winter's Bite?
Yeah, sure. Main character's name is Isabella. I have a niece called Isabella, and actually, about I think I kind of started thinking about this book just after she was born. I was so excited to have a niece. So she's named after my niece, and her surname is my grandmother's surname, and she is, in this book, she starts off as 12, and she's just a tough kind of army kid who's grown up in the middle of nowhere in India, and she rides and shoots and fishes and hunts and plays with animals and chases tigers, and she's very adventurous. It was important to me to write a book. I don't really do girly girl characters. That's not my thing, and it's she's too young to have any kind of relationships. It's firmly middle grade. It's all about having an adventure, but it's also about that sort of teen age where you know a lot. You don't know everything, but you know a lot, but you haven't quite tipped into adulthood, which I think is quite a formative time, isn't it? It's when you're really starting to form your own opinions on things. So she's very good-hearted, but she's very headstrong, and she thinks she knows it all, but actually she doesn't. She's a very good rider too.
Good writer. So, how did you come up with the title of Winter's Bite?
I wrote it, actually. Somebody said that to me once, that if you will write the title of your book, you will be somewhere in the manuscript. And this book had a different title right at the beginning, and as I was going through and then another edit, I suddenly thought, right at the end of the book, it says, there's a line that says, Winter's Bite had gone, because this is when, at the end of the book, I don't want to give any spoilers, she has a chance to go back to India. And it seemed to sum up her whole experience, because she arrives in the previous autumn. So she spends a long, horrible, cold winter on the streets of London. And it just seemed really appropriate for everything that had happened to her during that time. She'd come from beautiful, warm, loving, happy India, and she ended up in this dreadful, cold, dangerous place. And suddenly, right at the end, the Winter's Bite suddenly starts to lift. But everything she's experienced up till then, when I saw it, I thought, oh yeah, that is a good title, actually. That seemed to encompass everything that the book is about.
Yes. So, did you draw from personal experiences when crafting the story or characters of Winter's Bite?
Yeah. Not personal stories as in so much as what she goes through, but she does think, my dad died in 2003, and I think I was pretty much writing this as he died. So it was kind of, there's a lot of loss in this book. and the whole thing kicks off because her father has died, or he's disappeared. You know, to all intents and purposes, he's gone, and it's how she's. So that is exactly me. So I wrote about how I was processing the death of my father, definitely, and the loss around family members and the loss of any kind of support, really. So, but then the kind of adventurous side, all the sort of action stuff, I made all of that up. But her as a person and how she thinks about how to try and get herself out of these situations that she finds herself in, I hope, come from me. You know, I'm not saying that I'm a really good person or anything, but I think I can only write about my own, what I would do in those situations, you know, what my own experiences would be, even though she's a character that I've made up. It's inevitable, I think, when you write something that quite a hefty chunk of yourself is going to be in there. But it's quite hard to see it when you're actually writing it. It's not until later on I'll suddenly go, oh, hold on a sec, that's, you know, either that's me or that's so-and-so or that's what so-and-so does. So, yeah, it's interesting. And I'm really fond of her. And I'm just about to start writing the third book, and I'm looking forward to seeing how she and I get on now she's a bit older. It's going to be interesting.
Interesting for sure. So, what do you hope readers will take away from Winter's Bite? Winter's Bite.
First, I think, first of all, that they'll have a really good kind of escapism, because it is historical, is writing about a time. They'll learn maybe a few things just because of the places that it's set. And if you like, you know, Old English history, there's quite a bit of that in there. I did do my research. So, and to just take them out of this world that we live in and to take them back in time, I would hope they get that. And also maybe its sort of overall message is to keep trying, you know, to not give up, because she doesn't give up. And I put her in some pretty horrible situations, but she didn't give up and she keeps going. And I think what I was saying about grief, I think it's about when you're young, learning that these things don't have to completely disable us. You can keep going, and that there is hope, right?
Yes. There
Yeah.
is always hope in
Yeah.
everything. Were there any particular authors or books that influence your writing when you're
Yes.
writing this Writer's Bite?
Yeah. This book in particular was influenced by a book called The Little Princess, which is a book by Frances Hodgson Burnett. It's an old book, and that's the story of a little girl who ends up in London, and her father dies, and she's made a pauper, basically.
Hmm.
It's quite a famous book. I was also influenced by books by a writer called M.M.K., and that's Kaye. She wrote, I think, about 3 books about India in the 1850s, and I got a lot of information about what her descriptions are so beautiful. I pretty much stole everything she wrote,
Yes.
and I didn't. But I mean, there was a lot there that I borrowed the areas. India's a really big place, so I needed to make sure my geography was correct. So I spent a lot of time borrowing the geography from her books to use in mine.
So, Miss Hannah, before we go on, I want to shout out my ranking tops for the last 30 days. I want to shout out the people listening in Jordan, Mexico, Thailand, Philippines, Egypt, Tanzania, Moldova, United Kingdom, Poland, and Norway. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast, because this podcast is created to empower writers, authors all over the world, like Miss Hannah Parry. Can you share a memorable moment from your writing journey that had a significant, in fact, on the Winter's Bite?
that book won at the Winchester Writers' Conference, which is quite a big writers' conference here. It came first in its category, which is the middle grade category, and I was not expecting that. I was absolutely thrilled, and it was on my birthday, so that was to get that so early on. I'm not even sure I'd finished it. I think I just submitted the first couple of chapters, but it won, and I was just so happy because it meant that the imposter syndrome, I could put that down for a bit, because I think all writers have it. You sit there writing away and thinking, God, what am I doing? Who's going to read this? Why am I writing this? But everybody's got, if you're writing, it means you've got a story to tell, and you just got to keep doing it.
Yes. Keep doing it and stop procrastinating. Write and write and write. How important was research in creating the world of context of Winter's Bite?
Yeah, that was pretty important, actually. I had lots of actually, I didn't have lots of books. I can see them now. I've got about sort of 3 non-fiction books on India, historical books that I read. I didn't read them all, but I went into them I'd have to sort of find out things like how long did it take a train to get from Delhi to Rajasthan, things like that. It had to be accurate. I know I can, these days it's fantastic. I can just look it up online, but it's nice to read the books and to get a real feel of what it's like to be back in those times. And it's in this country, there's a huge amount of history about India, because we've been involved with India for so long, and India's been involved with us for so long. So there's a lot to read, and there's a lot I need to know, and I needed to get it right.
Hello, Miss Anna. Well, people watching us live, there's something wrong with our communication with the Miss Hannah.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know
can
what's
see you
happening over
now.
there.
Yeah.
Yes. So go ahead, Miss
Okay.
Hannah. You're talking about India.
Sorry.
No worries.
India. England and India have been interlinked for a very, very long time. And so I feel like I owe it to everybody and to myself to make sure that I get those details right, even though the details are tiny. So I did do proper reading for it, but I am very lazy, and a lot of the time I will just look things up online if it's something small that I can get away with, right?
So, Miss Hannah, what message or lesson, if any, could you like your Winter's White impart to readers?
Um, I think if I think it was just what I said before, was just always keep a bit of hope in your heart, for whatever it is that you want. And she's quite a kind girl, this main character. She's kind, and her kindness gets her out of a lot of scrapes, So maybe I think it would be brave and be kind. That would be the message I would hope maybe that this book might convey.
Be kind, people, because nowadays people are unkind.
Right.
So, because of that, Miss Hannah, well, very well said for that. Winter's White. Can you tell about symbolism or hidden layers in your book that readers may not immediately notice?
Yes, I. Yes, I. 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 like I said, there's a lot of loss in there. She loses the two. One is the lady who looks after her, an Indian lady who dies from cholera. Sorry, I shouldn't say that, but she does die right at the beginning, so it's not a spoiler alert. And then her father, and the loss of those runs through like a seam of rock, really, throughout the whole, because it changes everything, doesn't it? When you lose what you consider your support, the whole world shifts and you have to rebuild. So I would say that is one thing that I hadn't really realised until I read the whole thing, how much loss there was in it. And then the other thing is that there's quite a lot of, I like writing about science. I was a nurse. I like writing about health and medicine. And she's very good with her herbs because her Indian nanny taught her how to heal people with herbs. And that ticks along underneath the main story as well. She's always, getting out the herbs and curing somebody's cough and that kind of thing. So that's a big part of me, and it was interesting to see that come out as a subtext as well.
Yes, as a
Um,
hidden layer. But
hmm,
before we go on, Miss Hannah, I want to invite our listeners to please do purchase one of my products or Food 101 merchandises. Food 101 is my other podcast with Chef Alessandro, one of the specialty chef in one of the five-star hotel in downtown Toronto. And this is our the products of our Food 101 on our fourth season. If you're looking for coffee mug, accessory pouch, and what else? Apron, of course, bento bags, beach towel, name it, and we have it, people. So please do purchase one of our Food 101 merchandise available on Etsy and Shopify. And Miss Hannah, how do you think Winter's Bite stands out in genre or category?
sorry, could you say that again? But sorry, my microphone's gone.
No worries. So,
Sorry,
how do you think Winter's Bite stands out in each genre or category?
it's quite a small category. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
That's middle grade historical fiction thriller is a small category, but I think I've read quite a lot of the really good books in that category, award winners and stuff, and I think it holds up okay. Actually, I mean, there's some really beautiful books. Um, I'm just trying to think. Voyage to the River Sea is a lovely one, and it's not quite as good as that, but it's a book that will definitely provide you with a few hours escapism, you know, and I think it holds up quite well. Uh, I worked hard on it. Yeah, yeah, I think it holds up okay.
Yes.
It probably needs another edit, to be honest, but um, I think the story works. I'm pleased with the story.
Are there any plans for a sequel or related works to expand the story or themes of
Yeah,
Winter's Bite?
there is a sequel already published, and that's called Fever Quest. So that is out now it's in Amazon on the same page as Winter's Bite. And I have just started writing the third. I always planned for it to be a trilogy, and I've just started writing the outline for the third book. So I would hope, if I was really clever, I might have a first draft by Christmas.
You're already clever, Miss Hannah.
Well,
No
yeah.
doubt about it. So I give you a cheering squad.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan.
Yay! Thank you for sharing your talents to the world. And what will be your advice for aspiring writers out there?
I think it would just be to, I'm sorry, I always say this, but to just read a lot, read, especially, I suppose, because I struggled with this, the genre in which you like to write, that your category, um, read everything in it, and then you'll know where you sit within that category. Because if you want to get an agent and do all that marketing stuff, they will want to know that you know where you are. So, but I think just writing is, first of all, just do it, and second of all, while you're doing it, make sure you read a lot.
Yes.
But you probably read a lot anyway, because I think people who read a lot can always write.
For sure. People, stop procrastinating and read a lot. If you have no time to read, listen to an audiobooks. Just like one of my, of course, I just want to promote my one of my audiobooks. Please do grab them or purchase them. Stand tall, stand together, breaking the chains of bullying. Life is too short, as they said. And of course, my book 101 review, volume 3. These are all my 100 episodes of my first season, people, of book 101 review. And of course, my climate change book, The Unraveling Climate and Our Race to Restore Balance. And book 101 review, volume 2, selected. Again, this is my product of 100 episodes of my first season. Book 101 review, volume 1, highly recommended. And one of my self-help book, Threads of Existence, Weaving the Tapestry of Life. And please do purchase them. One of the best sellers on Audible, people. And Miss Hannah, can you please invite our listeners to support all your?
Yes, thank you so much. It's so nice to see all your books too. If any of you would like to read any of the books I've written, you can go onto Amazon.com or whichever country you're in. It's worldwide, although not in different languages yet. And so the two children's books are Winter's Bite and Fever Quest, and the book for adults, which I've written, which is a dark medical thriller, is called Breathing for Both of Us, and you'll be able to find those under my name, Hannah Parry.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Hannah Perry, because if you support her, more books to come. And for our next episode, Miss Hannah, let's talk about the sequel or prequel of Winter's Bite.
Okay, that would be lovely. Thank you so much. So
More to
nice to
come,
see you.
people. Yes, more to come, people. See you soon. Thank you, Miss Hannah.
Thanks, Daniel.
Catch
That's
you
so kind
next
to have.
week, the same time.
Yeah, do you want to do 4 o'clock, 4:30? What?
Yes. Thank you so much. Bye for
Thanks,
now.
thanks, Daniel. Take care. Bye.
Take care. Hi, I'm Daniel Leaches, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is a CEO at Diversity and Luxury, business coach, keynote speaker, podcaster, and of course, best-selling author. No other than Miss Elizabeth Solaru. Welcome to Book 101, Miss Elizabeth. Welcome back, welcome back. And as usual, can you please more introduce yourself?
Right, I'm Elizabeth Junior. But the one thing that I am known for is for my cakes. I've been very fortunate to have clients that are royal family, ultra high net worth individuals and families. And I've worked on many weddings and I've created really exquisite cakes that have flown around the world.
Really exquisite cakes, people. So please visit the website of Miss Elizabeth. Each one of a kind. So, Miss Elizabeth, let's continue our discussion about luxury brand. How can a luxury brand effectively use digital marketing without losing its aura and exclusivity?
That's a brilliant question because the digital world really scares a lot of big, especially the name luxury brands, it scares them because on one hand, they don't want to be too accessible. And on the other hand, they want to keep being exclusive. So the best way to describe what they can do is to use the example of Laura Piana. Laura Piana, one of the best luxury brands in the world. It's well known for the quiet luxury aesthetic. And and people are surprised when I tell them that they actually have a presence on TikTok. Because many brands, they think, oh my God, TikTok is for kids that are dancing and that sort of thing. But it depends on the influencer that you select. So if you choose the right person to partner with, you can get amazing results. So what Laura Piana did, they partnered with an influencer called the Gestalt Guy. And the Gestalt Guy, he makes fun of people like him, but he's always praising Laura Piana. So they decided to partner with him. They created a range of products, and those products sold out within a few hours. So what luxury brands need to do is to do what I call a 360, a top to toe collaboration. So you can't just give an influencer a couple of things and tell them promote that for me. It should be a proper joint collaboration where the influencer has a say in whatever it is that's being created, so they have ownership of it, and then you roll out the campaign really, really well. So it's not just a matter of you say, okay, we'll just do a few TikToks of the influencer dancing, or tell the influencer create content for me. You need to actively collaborate on that content, give it 100%, and then take it from there.
Take it from there. So, what are the challenges of pricing strategies for luxury brands?
This is a great question because pricing is one of the ways in which people can distinguish a luxury brand. As I said before, just because it's expensive doesn't mean it's luxury, but luxury tends to be expensive because accessibility is one of the ways in which you can gatekeep luxury. So with pricing strategy, as if you are an aspiring luxury brand, there are 3 or 4, actually there's 7. There's 7 pricing strategies. But I would always say the one you should pick should be value-based pricing. So you're not pricing based on how much the material costs or how many hours you spend creating something. You are pricing based on the value that is providing to your client, which can be a bit tricky, but I have an equation in my book, Luxpreneur, because I look at the perceived value minus the cost. That gives you the real value of an item. So, for example, if you create something for me and I think it's worth £1 million to my brand, but you could have spent £20,000 creating it, there's nothing preventing you from charging me £1 million. But many people, they tend to look at the cost of, so for example, when they talk about handbags, so an Hermes Birkin handbag, for example, what Hermes has done is that they allegedly, and I'm going to use the word allegedly,
Mhm.
they hand select, and they have a waiting list for people that can buy their handbag.
Oh, wow.
So not everyone that goes into the store gets offered a handbag. So you can go in and say, "Can I have a birthday?" And the answer is always, "I'm sorry, madam, there's a waiting list." However, some people go in and they get offered a handbag.
Mm.
So what they've done, and this is allegedly, according to people that come on social media, they have created a system where there's a bit of gatekeeping going on. So, and that's the scarcity and the rarity element. And to be fair, if a handbag has taken so many hours to create, it's not mass market, it's all handmade, hand finished. Some of the leathers that they use are the best of the best, and sometimes those leathers may not be easily available. Then they've got to be dyed, then they've got to be finished in a certain way. Then you've got the artisan. There's only so many artisans that are employed, so they've got to make sure that their skills are top notch, so they can replicate the same bag by hand over and over again. So when you begin to understand what goes into it, then you might understand why some bags cost a certain amount. So again, we're talking about all that labor, all the materials, the branding, the perceived value, the marketing. You've got to cost the how much they pay for their storefronts in the best addresses in the world. So when you start adding all that, that is probably why the handbags cost how much they cost. So pricing is absolutely crucial if you're building your luxury brand.
For sure. So, how can a luxury brand leverage partnerships and collaboration to enhance its image?
Oh, that is key. Because when I was a teeny tiny startup brand, for me, collaboration is key. So in the wedding industry, we do something called style shoots. So these are it's like creating a pretend wedding or creating a fantasy wedding. So what you have to do is get a venue, then you've got to get other partners involved. You've got to get a florist, a photographer, some models, dresses, makeup artist, hair, and the list goes on. So you create these style shoots to, in a way, you want to show the best of your best. You want to showcase what you can do. You can pick a theme. So there's one I remember organizing, and we did something around Frida Kahlo, and we leveraged the fact that the Victoria and Albert Museum in London was doing a showcase, the biggest showcase of Frida Kahlo artifacts outside of Mexico. So we leveraged that.
Yes.
Why didn't we do it like that? We did. Got a lot of attention. So, but when you do the collaboration, I would always say that you need to pick your partners very carefully. Try and go to the best partners that you can get. But sometimes the people who they might not want to collaborate with you. So, say, look for fellow rising stars who are very ambitious and who would bring their best to the table. But when you do that collaboration, that's not enough. You need to find
Yes.
that is the trick, because you can create a mutual collaboration, but if nobody knows about it, there's no point. So you need to create the PR strategy around it. How you going to work that? And you need to get very, very friendly with members of the press so that they can cover your collaboration. And of course, if you can't find anyone who can get any press, all of you who collaborate with it, you need to make sure you share everything on your social media pages. You need to make sure that you blog about it. And you need to make sure that you make as much noise about it Because sometimes people get embarrassed. They say, "Oh, what if people think that I'm talking too much about it?"
Yes. Doesn't matter. Yes. 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 That's true. Very well said, Miss Elizabeth. A big hand for you. And thank you so much for those insights. What is the importance of craftsmanship and attention in detail in luxury branding?
Oh, that's an amazing question because I consider myself, because when I wrote my book, The Luxury Brand, I created archetypes for the different types of luxury business owners. And I'm the archetype of artisan. And as an artisan, craftsmanship is all I dream of. So I'm dreaming of new ways, new techniques, improving my techniques. And I did so many courses to try and improve my technique. So with luxury, the craftsmanship has got to be top notch. And you also need to leave a bit of room for innovation. But as a business person, you need to balance the artistry against cost. Because you can spend millions and millions trying to perfect something, but are people going to buy it? So, and as a small business owner, you need to make sure you balance your spending on time, your energy, your spending, your materials, everything you're spending creating this perfect product against the cost of marketing, getting it out there, making sure that people buy, etc. So you need to be balanced. So craftsmanship is a must because your product needs to look incredible. But on the other hand, you also need to think of the end cost because you need to sell it.
Yes. Well done, Miss Elizabeth. But before we go on, I want to shout out my, well, top 5 countries listening to me according to Pod Chart. Because in St. Kitts and Nevis, I'm number 7 on the Apple chart. Uganda number 8. Uganda number 16 in arts. St. Kitts Nevis at number 20 in arts. And of course, Swaziland number 25. Thank you so much for supporting Book 101 review over there. And of course, my Geography 101. Thank you so much, Morocco, Egypt, Hungary, Denmark, and Russia. Please do listen to Geography 101 on my third season, people. I'm featuring Scandinavian countries. I'm featuring my Geography 101 Volume 1 is Scandinavia. And right now I'm featuring Norway. So please do listen. Geography 101. So, Miss Elizabeth, how can a luxury brand ensure sustainability and ethical practices without compromising its image?
Ooh, that is a big one. And I've got so many amazing examples. Sustainability is here to stay, whether we like it or not. However, some of the practices used in creating products that we love are not sustainable. So I'll give an example. The company, I'm not going to mention them, they created, they partnered with another company that creates mushroom leather. Because obviously, they make a lot of leather products and we're talking about animals being killed, etc. So they've been exploring plant-based mushroom leather. No, sorry, not plant-based, plant-based mushroom leather. But the problem is the leather doesn't behave the same. And number two, the dyes that is needed to stain mushroom and plant-based leather actually causes more harm to the environment. So on paper, yes, they are practicing sustainability, they are trying to practice sustainability, but in terms of practicality, it's not working. So what I think people need to take a step back and make sure that ethical practices are actually written into the values of the company and they're not just greenwashing. Because recently, in Italy, the Italian police made some arrests because they uncovered like an unethical factory where some big name brands were getting people to produce handbags that for about $57 each, and they were selling the handbags for about $3,000.
Wow.
It's a big, it's still a big, it's ongoing. We're talking major brands. So for me, ethical is an ethical violation. It violates labor laws, it violates legal laws. It's a mess.
Yes.
They need to sit down. It starts at the top. It starts with the board. It starts with the CEO, the chairman, with the shareholders. They need to say, do we make less profit, but we're ethical, and we don't risk any reputational damage because these ethical violations can bring your reputation, or do we carry on as we're carrying on, make more money, but we damage our reputation? So sustainability is here to stay. Ethical practices are here to stay. There is no hiding place anymore for these companies.
Yes. So how can luxury brand create and maintain customer loyalty?
That's another brilliant one. For me, this is one of the cruxes of my book, because I believe that there are a couple of things. A lot of luxury brands, they know who their clients are, and some think they know who their clients are. And I always say that what people are buying from you may be different to what you are selling. So for me, for example, I sell cakes.
Yes.
But what people are buying from me is not just a wedding cake. They're buying a promise that the cake is going to be one of the most amazing things at their wedding. They're buying from me a promise that the cake is going to taste out of this world. So me saying, oh, I'm a wedding cake maker doesn't quite describe what people are buying from me. So this is where a lot of people nowadays, they're using data, they're trying to track consumer behavior, consumer psychology, and all that is great and all that is valid. But if we use strictly data, to give you an example, the King of England was born on the exact same day as Ozzy Osbourne, right?
Yes.
They're both white, they're both English. So if we go by strictly data and profits, they should be buying the same thing as luxury clients.
Yes.
My book content, I tell you the type of luxury client that King Charles is, and I tell you the kind of luxury client that Ozzy Osbourne.
Yes. Mhm.
This is where psychology. I'm not a psychologist by any chance.
Yes.
The luxury to really decide, okay, if I have King Charles as a customer, this is what he would want from me. If I have Ozzy Osbourne as a customer, this is what he would want. Despite the fact that they're both British, both male, both born on the same day, both the same age.
Very well said and well done, Miss Elizabeth, for creating luxury brand like your cakes. Thank you so much. So, what strategies can be used to protect a luxury brand from counterfeiting?
Oh, that's a great one. Again, it's funny because I was talking to a friend of mine who is for copyright and IP lawyer. So without saying, you need to get your copy, especially with somebody like me. I'm an artisan, and my cakes have been copied so many times. I can't even begin to. It's ridiculous. So in my book, I talk about copyright and not just protecting your creations or your products. I even talk about copyright as it extends to imagery, photography, because when you work with a photographer to take photos of your products, you don't own the copyright. The photographer owns the copyright.
Yes.
So I say to businesses I coach or to people I mentor or coach, I say to them, you need to get a release from the photographer so you can use your imagery if you want to use it later, maybe in books, or because it happened to me. When I wrote Valencia, I wasn't able to use certain images because I didn't have copyright. So the images I used in my book, I had to write to each and every photographer so that they can so I can get the release in writing. Also nowadays, I know that technology can be used to detect counterfeits. So, for example, some people are using NFTs, and some people are using technology as a way of making sure, of authenticating and making sure that certain products are not counterfeit. So, those are some of the ways in which you can protect yourself as a small business owner.
Yes, people, protect your brand from stealer. Make sure it's your own. So, how does luxury brand balance a tradition and innovation?
Oh, that's a really good one. Um, hmm, I believe that in order to survive and thrive, you have to innovate. So if we use an example of, say, let's take Chanel, because everyone knows Chanel. The logo is still the same. The imagery in terms of some of the corporate colors, they're the same, black and white, very easy. But what has changed in terms of innovation is the type of creative director that they've employed over the years. So, for example, some people will tell you that Karl Lagerfeld was hands down the best creative director that Chanel has ever had, apart from Coco Chanel herself. So, if we use those two as an example, Coco Chanel, she innovated by saying, you know what, I'm not doing frou-frou dresses. I want to do plain, sleek, practical, but very stylish clothes for women. And she created the black and white. She used a very humble fabric, the tweed, but she sourced some of the best tweeds in the world. And then she created with the pearls, with the gold, with the chain, etc. But Karl Lagerfeld came in and still using the same materials. He brought in different design, he brought in color. So my point is that you can innovate, but you still need to stay true to the essence of your beginnings, of your origins, of your traditions.
Yes, for sure. So, what are the key metrics to measure the success of a luxury brand?
Right. Key metric. That's a great one. I would say number one, money.
For sure.
you making money? Number two, I would say maybe brand recognition. I would say, is your storytelling, if it resonating with your audience? Are you getting the right audience? Because I know that some years ago, some luxury brands were very upset that certain demographics were buying from them because they were aiming at a different demographic than the demographic that was buying from them. So are you selling to the right demographic for you?
Mm.
Number four, have you flooded the market with your products? So for example, there's a particular brand, they oversaturated the market and the brand then went down, and then luckily somebody came in, pulled back, reorganized, and then they're back on. So you need to, so a measure of success is not too easy an accessibility to certain products that you have. Your product should never, ever, ever be seen in discount stores if you can help it.
Yes.
If you can help it, certain products you should never, ever, ever. So so that's why some luxury brands, they really carefully control the outlets that they supply to. So those are some of the measures. But the one around brand recognition and the one around making sure that you do not oversaturate your market are very, very key.
Yes, people, money, 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 the key metrics for a luxury brand. So, Miss Elizabeth, can you please invite our listeners to support your upcoming book, Luxpreneur?
Yes, the Luxpreneur is coming out in September. It'll be available on Amazon. And if you are running a business, want to level up,
Yes, people, let's support Miss Elizabeth Solaro because if you support her, more books to come to inspire us, to empower us, like her cakes. So, Miss Elizabeth, thank you for your time. More to come, people. See you soon.